Alright, what I have here, and this is just I wanted to do a bigger, so that you can actually see it. So what I've done, these are just blobs, and from here I can make them into something. I've got that white that I had before, which is the gesso with some orange in it. And to that I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna, a little more orange, what I'm looking for is kind of a peachy color. I'm using my number 4 flat bristle brush, and that's too much paint. I'll rinse it off a little bit, wipe it out, and for highlights and stuff I can just kind of come in and suggest things like if these are rocks. Because you do see little rocks and stuff, especially on beaches like that. I'm just making marks. I'm not doing anything real exciting. It's just little marks. Can take a little bit of burnt sienna and blue with a little touch of that color. Just make a slightly darker version of it, and just blend it with my finger. But this is how you just take and make something out of just nothing. I was just kind of looking at the brush marks that I saw. Now I'm going to take a little bit of blue and alizarin crimson, makes a purple with a little touch of either burnt sienna or burnt umber, either one of those, and I can come in and put some darker shadows in behind there. I haven't covered up all of my underpainting. That's also part of this. So when I'm doing rocks, this is really all I'm doing. It's just putting in some little marks. Now that green thing on, in front of it, that could be, since we're working on the ocean, that can be kelp and stuff that's washed up. So I'm taking some of my Hooker's green and some burnt sienna, a little touch of that white. These things are kind of muted anyway, and again, these are just marks. Let me make it just a little brighter. I'm going to add some yellow to that color because I want just a little brighter. And the mud on my brush, and this doesn't have to be botanically correct. We're just suggesting some. But if you kind of think about what you're painting, the shape of them, these kind of have these long pads, so a lot of my brush strokes are going to be kind of long. Suggest some of those little bulbs that are on them. You don't have to say a lot because your viewer is going to be able to understand what it is just by the context of where you're you know, what you're painting and where you're painting from. Now that's the same color I used up there, the ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, a little touch of sienna. Just suggest some shadows. Now that's a good shadow color. It's one of those things that you keep in mind. Alright, so now that I've got that done, at least as done as I need it to be right now, I'm going to highlight the sand, and I'm going to pull the sand up against these things so that it settles it down. I'm going to go back to that color I made, the white with a little touch of orange. I'm going to add just a little touch of yellow to that. Little burnt sienna. You want the consistency to be kind of creamy. Okay, let's see if that's going to work. Okay, that's pretty good. So just wiped out a little bit. You come up and you're making like a little U shape so that it comes up against the rocks. You can put some of that in between some of these rocks. Also here, kind of bury some of this down into the sand. Pull it over. And then, you know, for the sand itself. Now this is going downhill, so I want to make sure that I'm, you know, making it look like it's going down towards the water. This is drier sand. And look at, you know, all of that underpainting that I had is working for me. You know, if I can do dry brush over this, make it look like there's sand on top of things. But this settles your objects down into, you know, the dirt. You know, like if you're working on a desert scene, this settles the bottoms of your cactus down into the sand. Or if it's snow, you pile the snow up around the bottoms of things so that it looks like it's going down into the snow. Okay, that's not too bad. Now I know we did a little bit of this last week with the foam, but I'll do another thing there. I'm going to just take that white that I was using, that's a soft white, that's the gesso and orange, and just tap the top. Now this is pretty thick, I haven't watered it down too much. Sun's coming from the left hand side. It's foam, so it's going to be kind of clumpy. Trying to keep it mostly up at the top. If I added more water, it wouldn't be quite as white, but I want you guys to be able to see that. And I can kind of soften into that bottom part. You know, these are going to be so small when I get to them on the actual painting that you may not be able to see it. So I'm just taking my blue and Hooker's green and white, and this is just a regular white, just the gesso, and making a light color. And I'm just going to pull this back. Let me make it a little bit lighter. Again, you're trying to create water's coming up, maybe hitting something. If I pull some of that foam back, that's okay. That's what it's doing naturally. But these are kind of long, flat strokes like that. And I haven't mixed the paint on my palette real well. So there's parts of it that are a little bit lighter than others. That's okay. It's kind of what I want. You don't have to make everything a homogeneous color. You know, it doesn't have to all just be blended to death. Let it have some variations. And last but not least, I'm going to come in with my burnt sienna, a little blue. And then right underneath here, there's wet sand. Now, if it goes behind this, then you have to just leave it, because this area here is in front of the bottom of that side, so you won't see everything. Just rinse my brush, just dragging some of that color out. Okay, this is an old canvas, so it's got a lot of brush marks and junk on it, but I think that kind of gives you an idea. You know, you can always come back and, you know, brighten things as you go. Like I'm just taking a little bit of yellow and just, you know, I can come in and touch this, add a little white to it if I want, or a little bit of green to make it bright and sparkly. You know, same thing with the rocks. I can pick up just some of that soft white, the orange and gesso, adding just a touch more orange into that, and then just hit some of the areas where you think it's going to be brighter. It's not what I want. You create rocks out of nothing. Just put a little highlight on something and it looks like it's catching the light. Don't keep your strokes all the same, you know, vary them up. Okay, so that's basically what I'm going to be doing when I get to the painting here. So I've already got some of that color mixed up, the green and the burnt sienna, a little yellow. There are certain colors like red and orange, even the green at times. If you want it to be a cleaner color but still make it lighter, rather than putting white into it, which will kind of dull the color, add yellow. Yellow will keep it brighter. You know, there's sort of diminishing returns. Let's see if that's... This is just that greenish color. Come back in here and throw some of that, like it's kelp or something. But not all of it's kelp, some of it is rocks. So my burnt sienna, I always mix down in something I already have going, so this is a little bit of burnt sienna mixed in with some blue and red, I think. It's not bright enough. Add a little white to that. This is just some of that white with whatever mud's mixed in on my brush. And if you need to switch brushes to make it a little bit easier on you, go right ahead. I just get stuck using one brush and I just kind of stick with it. But you know, if you're struggling, you might want to use like either a round brush or a smaller flat sable brush, give you a little bit more control. So now I'm going to make up that sand color, which is the white, little yellow, little burnt sienna. And that's the soft white, not the gesso. And then just too much paint on my brush, so I just wiped it out. This is pretty much a dry brush technique. So, you know, not having a lot of paint on your brush will be helpful. Over here, I want to make sure that we pile the sand up over here. I'm just kind of scrubbing using the side of my brush just to scrub some of that lighter color. But when I get up to a rock or other debris, I kind of make that little U stroke. Now in the water, it's a similar thing. Because that water, when it comes, it'll pile up on one side of the rock. I don't have many of them there over here, but I'm making that little comma stroke. And this is just the blue and green and white that I was using before. Alright, now while you guys have been painting, I have been looking at my overall painting, you know, so that I can kind of figure out what I want to do, what I like, what I think needs to be, you know, have a little more done to it. You know, it's not bad, you know, when you're talking and painting at the same time. It's not always the best situation. But as I was looking back and forth between my laptop screen and the painting itself, and I kind of came to the conclusion, and this is what you need to do, is to figure out where you can put in just little things. I'm not talking big stuff right now. I'm talking just little suggestions of things. Where can I highlight something, or where could I add some shadows? Where could I define and make things a little clearer? You know, do I need some more highlight, you know, in the water? What about my rocks? So that's what I've been thinking about this whole time. And I do think that there are some places that I want to just punch up a little bit. And since my focus is kind of here, you know, at the point of the mountains and the cloud where it comes, so my focus is in there. So this is the area that I'm kind of have been concentrating on to see where it is I can just enhance it just a little bit. And I'm going to start up in the clouds. I'm not going to do a lot, but I'm going to take that soft white, that's the gesso, and a little tiny touch of orange with my bristle brush here, and in just certain places. Let's see if that's going to be, yeah, that might be. Actually, I think I'm going to add just a little bit more white to that. Because it will dry a little bit darker. But I want it kind of still on that creamy side. And I'm using the side of my brush. And I'm just going to like lightly go around some of these places. Just to get a little bit more light with a little touch of color in there. Put it on maybe a little bit thicker. Want to remember that these are clouds, so that the edges of them can be real lacy. Maybe back in here there's a little bit of sunlight hitting the top of these clouds back here. Don't want to do a lot. This is, and this is where a lot of you get carried away, is that you think that if a little is good, then a lot's got to be better. But it isn't necessarily so. I mean, look at that. Things start. Here you go. And I want to kind of keep it in that area. That kind of lets your viewer's eyes stay right where you want it focused. So that's really about all I want to do. And I want to, now I've switched brushes. I'm going to be using, this is my 1/4-inch flat sable brush. Going to take that white. Now, as I was looking at my reference and my what I've done, I realized that there's more dirt and stuff up there. I'm not going to worry about that. That's just, that's, nobody's really going to, somebody might. I can't say that everybody won't, but right around here there's some brighter rocks. This is just a soft white. It's kind of tapping some of that. Make sure my head's not in the way. Tapping some of that right along the edge, because there's little rocks that might be picking up some light. And I'm going to take, now I've got phthalo blue, and I'm going to take the phthalo blue because I want to get this done, and add just a tiny touch of that into just some pure white. You can use the ultramarine blue with a little touch of the green, but it's mostly white. I want to make this a little bit brighter. And a little bit bigger. Brings it a little bit closer. Yeah, I like that better. So it's not so lost in those trees in the background. Gonna just let it dry for a minute, because I do want to put a little bit of shadowing on it, not much. In the background back here, I see a couple of things that I want to put in that you don't have to. Now, all of this is stuff I want to do because I feel I need to do it. But if you are satisfied with what you have, just let it go. I'm mixing up kind of a charcoal gray here with my ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and white. White just changes the value of it. And I want to put in, let's see if this is the color I want. Maybe a little more blue. I'm trying to make a distant shadow color. There are some cliffs in here. And I'm just going to kind of like tap in some of the shadow. Blend it with my finger. because there's a lot of rocks and stuff up in these cliffs, and give it a little bit more texture. A little touch of water into that. Now this is where you can get carried away, and I will give you the warning that you need to learn how to stop. I'm going to pick up a little cad red and a little bit of burnt sienna and mix it in with that white, trying to make kind of a highlight color for these rocks as well. A lot of this is just little subtle touches. I want to come in right behind some of these palm trees. And I need to make it a little more dirt color. But this way I can come in and enhance it so that you see some of those trees. Little white, little burnt sienna, and I'm using the cad red instead of the orange. My orange is kind of, it's not cadmium orange, and it's kind of weird. And these rocks have got a lot of color on them. If you look at, especially certain times of day, these things will glow. Throw some little holes back in there where maybe, let me stand back and look at that. It's not bad. Throw some of that color down in here too. Don't be afraid to repeat a color. Repeating a color kind of brings harmony and connection. So if you pick up a color that's a little bit different or a little bit unique, add it in other places. Now last but not least, I think I'll go back to my flat bristle brush here. Maybe a little bit more work in the water. My ultramarine blue and white. Little touch of hooker's green. When I say white, I'm talking about my gesso without the orange in it. So this is going to be dry brush, so I'm just kind of wiping it out, and I'm just going to skim, put this up on the edge here, just want to skim. I need to add a little more white. Just kind of want to put a sheen on my water. Maybe not all of it, but some of it. I've got kind of a little wave right there that I'll put the sheen on. But I'm making kind of little rocking motion with this. Keep that down. I'm still kind of thinking about that one area. Pick up a little more white into that. Remember, when I come up to the rocks, I'm going to kind of pull it up so it looks like the waves are kind of crashing up onto those rocks. Stand back and look at that. But you know, you finish it the way you want to finish it. I think that as far as I'm concerned, I'm done. You know, just look at it. If you like it, stop. You know, you don't need to please me or anybody else. Please yourself. So if you like something, you just stop where it is, set it aside for a few days, and then come back and look at it. And if you still like it, it'll just be fine. You might see that there's a something that jumps out at you. I've got a little smudge here from something. Just blending that back in with the blue and green. But it's like that little smudge just kind of jumped out at me. So I'm just going to come back in here and just throw a little bit of blue and green and just kind of blend it in. But I think that has got shot it.